Did you know that the name Chris means follower of Christ? Yeah, me neither, until it was commented by Jimmy, so thank you for that. But for today's video, I'm talking more about religion and how it might all relate to Deltarune. I bring up the mythological aspects of Christianity because there are so many parallels between Deltarune and Christian mythology. I think it's important as well to point out that I'm not going to speak about Christianity from its religious perspective, but simply its stories and how they relate to Deltarune. And so let's go back to this comment. Chris means follower of Christ. So first, I want to analyze the symbolism in that and then relate it back to Chris. Now, do I think that Chris is a Christian? No, I don't. And I don't think there's evidence to show that anyone in Hometown is a Christian. However, this raises an interesting idea. What does it mean to follow Christ? What would that look like? When I say that, I don't mean something like, ask yourself, what would Jesus do when someone flips you off in the middle of the road? There's a famous Nietzsche quote from his book, The Antichrist. He says something like, there was only one Christian, and that Christian died on the cross. I really, really like that quote because basically what it's saying is, if you say you're Christian, you fail to live up to the ideal all the time. And not even specifically for Christians, you can broaden that out and say we all fail to live up to the ideal of being a better human being all the time. So I really do like that quote. I think there's a lot of truth to it. And also what that argues is being Christian doesn't mean to say, I believe in God. It means to act as if you believe in God. And that's another really interesting idea that's worth considering. What does Christ actually do? Christ takes his cross and carries it up the hill to his crucifixion. The cross is a symbol of suffering and a symbol of burden and a symbol of responsibility and a symbol of death. After Christ takes his cross up the hill, it becomes clear that he will be crucified. He's going to die. That means that one day the burdens of life will eventually kill you, but that also means that the efforts you make before your death might actually save humanity as a whole. So now let's relate that back to Deltarune. We, the player, the soul that we control, are the symbolic cross that Chris must carry. We are the suffering and the burden that Chris has to deal with. And the other thing is, it's not optional. Chris doesn't have the option to reject your soul. Once the game is booted up, the soul is there. And from this perspective, you can see the soul as the burdens that we all have to carry in our lives. We are all born with burdens that we must carry. And so what this says is Chris must carry his metaphorical cross. The chapters or the journey can symbolically be seen as the walk up the hill. So what happens once Chris finally reaches the hill? Well, we don't actually know because usually in stories like these, the main characters don't die. The hill's an interesting symbolical thing as well. In general, hills are higher points in terms of the geography of the world, and you could say that they come close to touching the heavens. This is an idea from Mircea Eliade. I think I'm pronouncing his name correctly. Basically, he was a mythology guy, and he said something along the lines of, the hill is a sacred space. And so it's sacred because it touches the heavens, in quotes. It's a high point, right? So you look up to the stars and you can see the heavens. I think this is specifically why the winged ball is placed on top of the cathedral to say, become the angel and become the savior the world needs. And if you do that, you're touching something divine. And so what does Chris do? He has to struggle and contend with us. He has to fight with us, the player, and work around that, and he still has his own plans and motives. And I know this didn't exactly theorize, but I think it's super cool. And I think it says a lot about why Deltarune is so important to understand. It teaches you how to act, and I made this same argument with Undertale, and Deltarune does the same thing with Chris. It's so cool.